This is our presentation on meaning making. Due to the fact that we had less breakouts and we wanted to offer more sessions, we kind of combined our TK5 and our 612. So you'll notice this is one of those themes that have a combined session, but you'll still get a lot out of it, I promise you, I hope, by the end of this session. I'm Kristen Cruz. I'm the administrator of the Curriculum Frameworks Unit at the California Department of Education, and Shar Ford and Marsha Tokiyoshi, sorry, I have to slow down. Did I do it right? Pretty much, are coming from the Contra Costa County Office of Education, and have graciously agreed to present with me today. And we've had some ventures out on Common Core workshops together, so we're so happy that we're here together for you today. Okay, oh, not yet. So I like starting out with an image. First of all, I was a high school history teacher, so I did a lot with art and paintings and historical paintings. So the painting, you'll see it in your, it's not a big secret, it's in your handout, has a historical context. But the first thing I want you to do is I just want you to take a look at it. And some of you might look at it and go, yeah, I saw it, it's called this, it's by this person, blah, blah, blah. But I guarantee you, I have taught this painting, or I did teach it for about 10 years, and there were so many things I did not know about it when I actually went in to research it. So look at it closely. If you're way in the back and you need to come up a little bit just to kind of look for different details in it, please do so. First, on your own for about 2 minutes, just study it. Try and figure out what's going on. If you already know what's going on, look for some other details that you might not have caught before. And then I'll kind of announce when to kind of start sharing with a partner about what you think is going on in this picture. Painting. Okay, just on your own for a couple minutes. Okay, do I have anybody that wants to give their interpretation, or you know the painting, so you're just kind of willing to say what's happening? Volunteers? That looked like a sort of volunteer. No, you were just pointing at the westward expansion, okay? Is that where most people went? Good, good. And how do we know? What were our clues? Manifest destiny, absolutely. Where are we seeing this happening? Where's our westward expansion? Well, first of all, right, never eat shredded wheat. It's going from east to west. I have to do that. It's terrible. Okay, so everything's moving westward, so that's a good clue. What else are we seeing that's showing that it's westward expansion? What are our clues? Okay, we've got the railroad moving in. Good, moving across. Covered wagons. Okay, moving across. Good, okay, we've got Native Americans being displaced here, okay, being pushed. Buffalo, we're moving that way, okay. I heard somebody over here too talking about kind of the juxtaposition in color from each side of this painting, right? What's happening over here? Light. Ah, right, and everything over here is very dark and ominous, okay, very good. Back here, did anybody notice? Back here? Yeah, hard to see, but water and ships. So again, a lot more of that technology moving in and kind of modern things. Good. Tell me about her. Who is she? Good.
Well, I'm not sure specifically. Well, I guess maybe.
Yeah, Sally. Her name's Sally.
The way that, like, how large she is in proportion to all the smaller people, like, harkens back to older European, I want to say, like, medieval paintings where, like, a divine figure is always disproportionately larger than everyone else and kind of dominating the image.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, some kind of divine figure. Okay. Anybody catch what's in her hand?
There's something writing there. I couldn't figure out what it was.
Okay. First of all, we've got this. She's streaming the telegraph wire across to the well. Ah. That's good, okay. And then everybody asks about this, and I had never, a lot of people kind of go straight and say it's the Bible, right? She kind of looks like an angel. Like, oh, good, you didn't go there because it's not the Bible, okay? It actually, if we could see all of it, it says common schooling on it. And she's bringing education and technology into the West, yes, okay? So she's like this figure of enlightenment, okay, coming to the West. Other things, you've got different groups of people, all with different purposes for going west, right? So we've got some miners over here. We've got some farmers over here. Maybe just kind of family, wagon trainer folks over here. Okay, anybody see this? What is that? I know what it is, but it's a bear. It's a bear. Why do you think a bear? Right in the corner. Maybe, okay, could be representing California. But notice where the bear is. in the dark side, right? With the buffalo, with the Native Americans, it's kind of the savages, right? Okay, the dark savage side that's being pushed out. Now, what's really interesting about this painting, it's called American Progress by John Gast. It was actually, it's a really small print because it was printed for like a travel book or a travel guide. And I forget the year, sorry, I should have written down. I could make one up, but I won't. It was 1852. But I think it was close to that. But in any case, his interpretation when he did it was showing that they're actually running away from the progress. They're afraid of it, okay? They're just taking off where the rest of us went, where most people would nowadays, right? It's like, they're being chased, man. They're not running away from progress. They're being chased off their land. And so it's kind of interesting, that author bias, right, or that artist bias, that they're like, oh no, they just ran away. That's all that was. They just ran away. They were afraid of that progress, okay? Now, how did we make meaning from this painting? What did you use to figure out what was happening here? Prior knowledge, background knowledge. What else did you use? Imagination or inference. A lot of you inferred, okay? We kind of looked at things and went, oh, okay, I'm not quite sure what that book is, but I know she's kind of this angelic force bringing good things across to the West, okay? So inference and meaning making is a big piece, and also that background knowledge is huge, okay? So we start with this painting, and I love this painting, it's so fun to teach. But to show you that all the skills that you just used to try and make meaning of this painting are also the skills that we're gonna use to make meaning from text and writing and speaking and listening, and they're all focused on in the framework document. Okay.
72.
Was it 1872? Okay, plus 20. Very good. So let's see if our thing works today. Ooh, ah. So I think in every session today, we'll go back. The second part didn't work. The meaning making is supposed to go. We focused on the fact that all of these themes, right, are kind of interwoven, and all four strands, the reading, the writing, the speaking, the listening, are going to happen underneath all of them for the most part. So we do this activity with folks where we give them the anchor standards, and we say, you know, which one of these 5 themes would you place this anchor standard? And it's kind of a neat activity with teachers and principals, because they start saying, well, it's kind of meaning making, but it's also really effective expression, and so you can see that they're kind of interwoven and they kind of cross over each other, or just by themselves. So we make meaning every day, okay? When we sit down at home and we watch the news, we're making meaning. When we read the newspaper, when we're writing or reading someone else's writing, when we're speaking and listening, we're trying to make meaning for what somebody is saying to us. I'm the worst. I have no poker face, so if I'm not really like catching on to what you're throwing down, I'm kind of like, you know I'm trying to make meaning with you. When we're using our own language. And so you're going to see meaning making across the ELA's Common Core standards and also the ELD standards. I have a 5-year-old at home, and it's so fun to watch her make meaning like on a daily basis. All the questions, right? We're in the car. Why does that look like that? Why is that color? Why did you say that when I said this? She's constantly making meaning in all kinds of different ways. And so it's really fun to watch that happen. Okay. Is this where I'm handing it off? Okay. I'm going to hand off and come back in a minute.
Oh, I think I'm on.
Oh, good.
Okay. As Kristen mentioned in the previous slide, meaning making cuts across all 4 strands of the Common Core, and we are quickly just going to look through reading, writing, speaking, listening, and language, starting with reading. And the bullets here showcase explicitly how meaning making is demonstrated with our students. What skills do they need to know? And by looking at the 4 bullets, this is the reason why close reading is such a popular instructional approach with the Common Core. Lucy Calkins calls it an economical approach because you get a big bang for your buck. It's one instructional approach where many strategies live within, and it helps elevate our interaction with text. And it really forces students to think of questions that bring them into the text. What is the text saying? How is it saying it? What's its value? And then also how one piece of text connects to other pieces of text. And then just important to note is the Common Core also blows up the notion of text to include visuals and to include multimedia components as well. Okay, and the next slide we'll look at writing. And the first slide addresses the writing standards 1, 2, and 3. So the 3 types of writing required by the Common Core. The second bullet talks about the production of writing. And then lastly, we're looking at research that includes text dependency, analysis, and reflection. I really like in the writing strand that the standards address short research projects and also longer sustained research projects for the whole notion of college and career readiness. Because in careers, many of our research projects are shorter focused projects, not longer over time. And I think working with our students, it's much easier to engage them in those shorter focused projects as well.
Okay. And also, in making meaning, we're also looking at speaking and listening very quickly, how students are engaged in a variety of communicative tasks, and if the modes of communication that are amplified more in the ELD standards, in the collaborative, productive, and interpretive modes, if those aren't familiar to you yet, they're on the last page of your program for today, and it's figure 1.1.2 from the framework. And these are tasks that students are required to do throughout the day across the content areas. And this last one refers back to appropriate task and situation that Hallie was talking about this morning when she was talking about register, and how that varies with task and situation. And in language too, the language strands both in ELA Common Core and in ELD, things that students are required to do in order to make meaning, and how that so depends upon what the students bring to the task. To understand, to make meaning of new words or unfamiliar words, and how looking something up in a dictionary doesn't do you any good if you don't know what the word means. Or how someone might give you a glossary in another language, but if you don't know the word, you still don't know the word. So a lot of the supports that are in the framework will help us as teachers and those who help teachers to help students understand what these tools are that they need to gain control and understanding of also the conventions of English, which will also be amplified more in part 2 of the ELD standards when we get into how language works.
Thank you. Can you put it to them? Thank you. There is one standard that addresses a staircase of complexity regarding text, and that is Anchor Standard 10. So one standard, and as we know, the Common Core standards were backwards mapped from 12th grade down. So that right there gives you an idea of the complexity by the time you're moving up that staircase, right? What I love about this text complexity piece is it has forced us as educators to really look at our instructional materials carefully. There are 3 dimensions when it comes to text complexity. Shar and I have trained this in a full day, so I am giving you just a brief overview, but we like to tell educators, yes, 3 dimensions, but it's actually a 4-step process. And I'll end with that 4th step. But the first dimension is the quantitative dimension, and that is simply a computer-generated lexile number that tells us what grade band this text is going to fall on. The qualitative piece is much harder to flesh out and determine, because we're actually now looking at the levels of meaning around a text. We're looking at the themes and interrelationships of themes. Qualitative dimension always trumps the quantitative dimension. Qualitative dimensions we look at on a rubric, from slightly complex all the way to exceedingly complex. But when I talk about trumping, the perfect example that you can find in Appendix B with the exemplars in the Common Core document is the book Grapes of Wrath. If you did a straight quantitative rating on that, it falls in the 2nd to 3rd grade reading band. Short words, easy vocabulary, text length, second to third grade. But if we were to really look at the mature theme and all the levels that fall within those themes in Grapes of Wrath, the qualitative level puts it all the way up into that high school band. So qualitative always trumps quantitative. And then lastly, reader and task. When we have a piece of complex text, we also have to examine what's the background knowledge of our students, what motivation do they bring to the task, and specifically, what are we asking them to do? So what is the task? What's the cognitive rigor involved in here is your assignment? So, in looking at the three pieces, we always say the fourth step then is the professional decision made by educators on where the particular book or piece of text should fall. So you're looking at your Lexile number, you're looking at the qualitative features, you're looking at your students, and you are experts of the students whom you teach, and what tasks you're asking of them as well, and then making a decision on where the book should fall.
Okay. So what teachers do to support students to both construct and extract meaning from complex text. There's some things listed here that students will be able to do and using these tools. But in order to do these things, the framework really highlights for us what the steps are for that and how we need to teach these tools before we assign them. And there is a lot of support in the framework to help us help students do that and to know situationally to help teachers help students with what tools are appropriate for what tasks and the teaching of these strategies before we expect all students to be able to do them. And Marcia spoke just now about text selection, and in that process of selecting text and planning lessons and lesson design, also taking into consideration not only the cognitive rigor but the linguistic rigor of that text and what parts of the language or the vocabulary, not just those tier 2 and tier 3 words for all kids, but for our English learners, what additional rigor is required for these students to be able to access it, particularly if these students in the last decade have been in instructional settings that did not require these tools to be used. Kids who have been in replacement programs, there's a lot of new work that we are going to expect of them, and a lot more work for our teachers to model, and providing lots of opportunities over time so that students can both construct and extract meaning from complex texts. Additional things for English learners, I already hit on these, but the framework does talk about primary language. And again, we can't assume that students can use their primary language unless we know what they bring in their primary language. We have such a range of prior experience with primary language in our students. And again, you'll see throughout the framework, and one of the critical concepts of the ELD standards is that we want to amplify, not simplify, the language that we are using with our students and that our students are using throughout the day. And scaffolding, again, a lot of support in the framework for scaffolding, the notion that it's temporary and that the goal with scaffolding is always independence and knowing when to provide more and when to pull back on that.
Okay, so in your handouts, you have figure 2.10. And we're going to do a short activity with this. What you're looking at is a document from the framework called Supporting Learners' Engagement with Complex Text. And in the 3 columns, the first column lists some skills, some strategies, and in the second column, you're going to see some descriptors that include support that teachers can provide. And then that third column, we love it. It amplifies the differentiated strategies and also supports for linguistically diverse learners. So we're going to ask you just to mark up your text by using a pen, highlighter, and in that third column, just start marking things that resonate with you. So you're going to skim the document quickly, but in the third column, just start marking some of the amplifications that really resonate with you, and then you'll have a chance to partner talk, but just maybe 2 minutes yourself. Skim the document, do your markings, and then you'll have a chance to process with your neighbor. If any partnerships would like to share with the whole group, what did you discuss? What did you pick out from this figure? And a nice loud voice for us.
One of the things that we were talking about was the cognates. Like the students need explicit understanding of the cognates, like the false ones and the real ones. Because a lot of, I teach ELs all day, a lot of them, and these are, kids are 3, 4, and 5s themselves, and they, even if they see the cognate, and I know it's a cognate, they still don't tell you, I don't know what that word means.
Yeah, yeah.
And they do know the word means.
Yes. Yep. Thank you so much. Did anyone else talk about that from the document? Okay, thank you. A little bit.
A little bit cognates that some of our students don't have the academic background in their first language, and so the cognates are limited. You have to use them very sparingly. Know really when would it be a cognate that would really fit those kids.
Exactly. Lots of head nodding when you said that.
The word what's really challenging students.
Very good. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Anyone else who would like to share with the whole group? We heard a lot of conversation. One other partnership. Thank you.
We were just noticing a lot of the same kind of words, the explicit teaching, the modeling, the delving deeper, just that. And they shouldn't take very long. It's like you have your lesson and there's just making sure. And one thing that I said is it's not just going to help your ELs when you do that.
Yes, excellent point. Thank you. Okay, a good way to transition to the next slide.
Who's clicking? Oh, very good. Okay, so since the title of our workshop is Reading Closely, we thought we should probably talk to you about that. But everything that we've talked about thus far is about helping kids to make meaning. Everything in figure 2.10, so again, they said this morning, if it's 2.10, you're going to find it in chapter 2 of the framework document. It's about helping kids meaning. Reading closely is a big piece of the Common Core and also in helping kids to make meaning. And I brought my paper with me because I want to read a quote to you. And it was Douglas Fisher in a interview that I found online and where he defined close reading. He said, close reading is a careful and purposeful reading. Well, actually, it's rereading. It's a careful and purposeful rereading of a text. It's an encounter with the text where students really focus on what the author had to say, what the author's purpose was, what the words mean, and what the structure of the text tells us. Okay, so I thought that was a really nice explanation. When we look at reading closely in the framework document, you're going to find all kinds of strategies in those snapshots and vignettes. So we've been looking at them all day. Hopefully all of your sessions have passed out some of those snapshots and vignettes. You're going to see them again today, and probably by the time you got to your third session, you're seeing the same snapshots and vignettes that we're kind of using for different purposes. So we're going to be letting you look at them for meaning making, where you might have saw them in your effective expression session for a different purpose. And that's because those themes kind of intertwine. When we look at those really early grades, the TK through grade 1, a lot of the close reading is going to be done through read alouds, and there is tons and tons of strategies in there that teachers use in their read alouds with students. But we're also going to see rereading and highlighting text with various purposes, examining text organization, text features, deconstructing and reconstructing text. I don't know if we were just talking about how we're Pam's feature groupies and we kind of follow her to all of her presentations. Has anybody seen her BAT piece where you don't see? That's a good piece on deconstructing and reconstructing text. Of course, we can't forget text-dependent questions. We're going to talk about those in a little bit too, but that's a huge part of close reading. And then utilizing outlines and charts and other tools so that kids can closely read a piece of text. The big point is not any one of these is the best. way to do it. Okay, there's not one way to read closely. There's a lot of different ways to read closely, but the best thing that a teacher can do is model it, right? Be a really, really good close reader and kind of model that metacognition and what they're thinking as they're reading a piece of text. So that's really, really important. So, in a minute, you're going to get a piece of text called The House. And some of you may have seen this before. It comes from a really good book called I Read But I Don't Get It by Kristen. And we don't have time to do the real activity with it, which I'll tell you in a minute because it takes a lot longer than we have today. But you're going to find a partner, okay? So let's say you're going to partner up or you're going to partner up. Find a partner. You're going to decide who is partner A and who is partner B. I want partner A to read the passage and highlight information. If you didn't bring a highlighter, just underline it. That would be significant to somebody who wishes to rob the house. Okay, you're a robber. You're going to read this piece of text about the house, and I want you to underline or highlight anything that's really important to somebody that's going to rob that house. Okay, partner B, I want you to read the passage, and I want you to underline or highlight significant information to somebody that's a prospective home buyer. Okay, you want to buy the house. Okay, so one of you is going to rob the house. One of you is going to buy the house. And it doesn't say anything about you personally. But I want you to read it from that perspective. So we're going to have, once you get it, partner A, B, decide. Then we're going to have silent reading time for about 2-3 minutes. And then you can discuss what you read and highlighted. Okay. Let me bring y'all back and we can talk about robbers and real estate. Okay. I know we're still sharing. It's a good piece of text, huh? It's very powerful. Okay, so I decided to look at it from the robbing perspective. So let me get everybody back. And I want to hear from my robbers, my fellow robbers. What was important to you in this text if you were going to rob this place? Go ahead and go back if you want to. It's up to you. Yeah. There we go. If you were staking the place out, you know Mom's never home on Thursdays. Good. That was another one. Mm-hmm.
Well, because I was watching and I saw that sister would go in without a key, I decided when nobody's home to take an inventory before and walk around something I wanted.
This is very detailed. I'm worried about that. Okay, good, good. That's good. That's important. What else is important to a robber? Yes?
The garage door is open.
Yeah.
Or a door going into the garage door, and there are 3 parked 10-speed bikes in it.
Yes. Oh, good. I didn't do the 10 speed because I was like, 10-speed bike. But yeah, they could be expensive.
It was 1977 when it came.
Yeah. Did you have another one?
Yeah, but the new house was a quarter of a mile away.
Right. Nobody was close enough to probably see you breaking in. Good. Or taking things out. What else? What else is in there? And then it goes into like some of their goodies, right? What were some?
Look at the hedges in case somebody came home that I would be able to hide behind.
Yes. That is really good. Okay. So what's some of the, your hand was up. What are some of the good things they have we can take?
Stereo in the living room.
Yes.
In the dining room, there's china and silver.
Yes. And cut glass. I was like, okay. Good. Famous paintings. We don't famous. They're famous paintings that they have. And a coin collection. And what's in the desk drawer? Money. Nice. He's kind of bad, right? Mark's like, I can get spending money anytime I want. It's in the desk drawer. Okay, we've got furs, we've got a lockbox with jewels, another colored TV, so all kinds of great things for a robber. Okay, so that's what we looked at. Did you have something else?
Yeah, I was interested in the fact that there was new plumbing in the basement. That means there's copper that I could steal from that.
Wow, we have some really good things in this room. I didn't even go there. That's good. That's very good. Good. Okay, so let's take away those bad deeds here. How about those of you that were prospective home buyers? Actually, there's some bad stuff for you here, huh? Some concerning issues. Yeah.
Well, depending on how you look at it, if you were looking to move out of the city, the tall hedges that hide the house and the big yard.
That's true.
That would be kind of appealing.
Those
And
are
the fact
good.
that the house is the nearest neighbor is kind of far away.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it could be appealing.
It could
depending on
be.
what you're looking for.
Absolutely. So the same things that the robber liked, you know, could be things that the perspective, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So we both might have highlighted those things, right? That might have been the crossover. So what else if you're going to buy the house? Yes.
I could have my own closet, a mother's closet.
That is really good. I like it. I look for that too. I have my own closet now in our new house. It's like heaven. It really is. Sorry. I don't mean to brag. Okay. What else? What else is good for a home fire or bad? There were some issues, right?
There's new plumbing, but the basement is still musty. That's a problem.
Yeah, musty basement is not good. New plumbing is good, so we have both.
Newly painted.
Newly painted is a good thing, right? Don't we have a leak somewhere? Isn't there? Yeah, we got a leak in the ceiling, and the old roof had finally rotted. Problem.
Kids have their own bathroom.
Okay, that's good. That's good. And how many bedrooms? There's 3 bedrooms upstairs. So a lot of different things. So obviously we had some crossover, but when we read it for different purposes, we highlighted different things. And so remember our definition from Doug Fisher that said it's actually a rereading of the text and looking for more details and looking for structure. This actual assignment, if you ever wanted to do it with a group and you had more time, you start with just telling the group, I want you to underline with pencil, okay, everything that's important. So imagine if I just said everything that's important in here. That would be tough. Right? Well, I don't know what's important because maybe they skipped school. That might be something that it was important that I underlined. That the house was away from other houses, but it'd be hard. So you start there, and then you come back and you say, okay, I'm going to give you a little bit more detail. Highlight in yellow anything that would be important to somebody that's going to rob to the house, and then the next step, the third read, is I want you to highlight in pink anything that was important to a prospective buyer. Okay, and then you realize all of these different details and layers as you read and reread it several times. Okay, and again, it has a source at the bottom. It's from a really good book called I Read It, But I Don't Get It by Kristen. And I think it's a nice passage, though, to really exemplify close reading, how important it is to give kids a purpose for reading. Because a lot of times, I think when we were in classes, a lot of times it was like, read page 247 to 254 and, tell me the important points or answer the questions at the end, and really didn't get to a good purpose for that reading. So again, something that we can do with kids to support their close reading of complex text. Okay. Text-dependent questions, we don't want to forget those. I think we're all pretty familiar with what they are, right? Questions that can't be answered without getting evidence from the text. My 4 children have 2 Common Core nerds in the family because I work for the state. My husband's a principal. And it's amazing, though, even with a 5-year-old, the text-dependent questions you can ask that are pretty complex. And we always give each other a little, oh, mommy, good text-dependent question. Thanks, Daddy. What would your question be? But we ask our 5-year-old daughter, well, why did Bobby really take Susie's toy? I mean, because they were jealous, Mommy. He was jealous. She was getting too much attention. And that says you can dig. And little kids kind of get it because she's got a little brother and she's jealous all the time and she takes her stuff all the time. So you can really dig deep into the text and ask those questions. And we are practicing it at home at a really young age. Now, my 2-year-old, not much, right? It's a spider. Yes, honey, that's a spider. That's very true. Very good. Okay, but text-dependent questions are very important when getting kids to understand and deal with complex texts. And now I'm going to turn it over to Shar, and we're going to take you into the snapshots.
Okay.
Okay, so we're going to activity. And what we are going to do is you are going to have a snapshot, and you need to partner with someone else who has the same color snapshot that you do. That's going to be the hardest task of the whole thing. And then you have to decide A and B, just like you did with Kristen's activity. Partner A is going to focus on what the student is doing to make meaning from the text. A is what the student is doing to make meaning. B, what the teacher is doing to support the students in making meaning. Before you do either of those things, first I just want to make sure everybody's got a colored piece of paper. It's coming along. So as we're doing that, so just in terms of timing of this activity, what we're going to do is after everyone has their pieces of paper and we've determined A and B, we're going to have a few minutes, probably 4 at this point, again, these times are abridged. If you're actually doing this, yes, you would take more time if you could. about 4 minutes, respectfully, read quietly, and then you will discuss with, oh,
Two people are supposed to have the same.
yeah. Two
People have the same.
So you need to be sitting next to someone who has the same color that you do. One of you is A, one of you is B, and you are skimming the same thing, but looking for different things, just like you did in the house activity. But instead of robbers and buyers, A is focusing on what the student is doing to make meaning. B is focusing on how the teacher is providing support as the students do that. If we had more time, the rest of the activity, we are going to do half of the rest of the activity. What we're going to ask you to do is decide between the two of you what's the most important thing with regards to making meaning that you would share with others. Now, we're not going to do the share with others part, but what you would do then is if you and I were doing this together and I was A and you were B, we would decide together this is the most important thing that we read about making meaning. And then we would go and find someone with a different color piece of paper and share that and do like a mix and mingle thing and then go and do that with someone else. But we're going to stop with this piece of the activity. So just take a couple minutes and say, what's the most important thing with regards to making meaning that you would share with others?
Hopefully this gave you a lot of ideas, whether you're a coach or an administrator or a teacher in the classroom. It gave you a lot of ideas. And really what the purpose was too is that you got kind of a taste of what's in the snapshots. We forgot to mention those vignettes. If you noticed on the top, the vignettes are really long, and everybody heard that there's 2 vignettes per grade level, and there's 1 ELA and 1 ELD, and they're pretty long. Some of them are up to 10 pages. Because we were having a shorter presentation, I abridged those down to the important pieces for meaning making, but they're easier to take in some cases too, so that might help you, and you know that all of our handouts and everything are online, so that you might utilize those as well, because the vignettes really were the places where we saw a lot of meaning making and close reading and whatnot, so that's why we condensed those down. I do recommend them going into the framework and reading them in their entirety, because there's so much more detail when you go at them that way. And actually reading them as pairs is really important too, to see the ELA working with the ELD and how those kind of cross over and make sense for kids and how the teachers are working together. If we had more time, we'd have you mingle with somebody else that had a different snapshot, but we won't today. But if you have time in your districts while you're kind of taking people through the framework and these activities, we encourage you to do that for sure. Okay, and this is just our thank you for coming to our session today. I hope you got a lot out of it that you can take back to your districts. And Deborah's actually going to make a few announcements before we go. But thank you so much for your time. And I thank Shar and Marcia, my gracious co-hosts today, or co-presenters. You're wonderful. Thank you very much.